Good morning. Good morning again. Today, Paola is with us for our second webinar with her. Um, Today is a more interactive webinar because last time we introduced the open education and we introduced the reason, the value of open education. Today, we will try to apply open education to our CINCH project.
Welcome everyone. I'm happy to see you again, and I'm available today to any service that can be helpful for you to release your resources, your educational resources as open. I really would like to start sharing with you very quickly the fact that last week it was the Open Education Week, and I'm sharing the link now in the chat because of course the Open Education Week is officially over because it closed last Saturday night actually because it's worldwide, you know, so there are all time zones are covered, but resources shared in the Open Education Week website will be available forever, hopefully, you know, so you can go there, look into them, and look at what can be useful for you. There are webinars, there are contents, there are presentations, papers, complete open textbooks, any kind of resource, videos, etc. So, and I would suggest you, if you are interested in going there, surfing, also through, I don't know, creative ways of looking for contents that you are interested or passionate about, and then maybe look into something that is more specific. As we said a moment ago, Francesca and I spent quite a lot of time deciding which was the most useful content for today's webinar. And we came to the decision in the end that it would have been good, if you agree for sure, to explore ways to share your resources. And particularly in your case, the content of your project is very specific and very technical. So the exercise I did myself was to use the best resources I have knowledge about, the best repositories worldwide, and look into radiochemistry content. It was quite difficult to find some, and most of all, I don't have the skills to go in depth and to look into their quality, while you have them. So from these first couple of sentences, you immediately understand that there are many categories are on the table. We have repositories where resources are collected. So this means that someone has to share their resources on those repositories. If no one shares resources related to radiochemistry, we don't have resources into those repositories. So first of all, thank you for being willing to share yours openly, because everyone will then be able to look into them. The last thing is that I might come up with 10 to 15 resources that might be related to radiochemistry, and we can have a look into them, but I don't have the skills to look at their quality, while you have them. What we can do together, again, is to look into checklists of things that it can be useful to look at when you find an open educational resource. And looking at those checklists when we are in the situation of this project is useful, because this is the best way that we can start to decide how to share ours. You know, if we comply to all the requirements of the checklist for the people that after we share are going to look into the resources, well, most of the work is already done. We are really helping them find ours, okay? So Releasing an OER is also somehow a way to disseminate properly and make it reusable, not only because we want people to build on our shoulders, as we did on the shoulders of the giants that historically come before us, but it's also a way to let people know about the work that we are doing, let us know, let them know about us, and also create red linings that can help us get in touch with people who do the same kind of work or are interested in, why not, improving the OERs that we shared and make them even better so that we can reuse them thanks to their contribution, okay? So, if we want to start, as Francesca suggested, from the resources that you already created, we might want to look into how to choose a license for them, right? Which is the license that we are compelled to use, which is the amount of freedom that we have in choosing in between different licenses, which are the permissions that we are somehow compelled to give users, and which are the permissions that it's up to us to choose whether to provide them or not, okay? So let's start from the license chooser. What is a license chooser? This is a tool that Creative Commons released in a beta version so far. Here it is. This is the beta version, but I love it, I have to tell you, because there is a version that is not beta, but this one works also fine on the Creative Commons website. And I can provide you the link to the other one, but this is very useful to guide through the whole process and lead you through each step of the way and every decision you have to make around each resource that you want to share. Creative Commons is the website, for those of you who don't know them yet, is the website of the organization. It's an NGO that released in 2001 the Creative Commons licenses that are the most used licenses around the globe to release OERs. Let's go through this chooser to wrap up some basic concepts that we talked about in our previous meeting, but it's always useful to remind us what we are dealing with. So, when you have a resource in your hand and you are willing to share it, the first thing that you have to check is if you have, if you are the owner of the author's right or of the copyright of that resource, okay? Which means, did you create it entirely? Did you create it with others? So other people are involved in the creation of it. So the copyright or the author's rights is shared in between more than one person. Did you reuse contents that are not yours or were created by others? Were those contents openly licensed, and are you aware of the license they have or not? Okay, those are the basic things that we have to start with. Please interrupt me whenever you need to, and if I'm going too fast, stop me. We can dive into each bit of this webinar according to your needs, okay? So really feel free to interrupt me. Let's make the easiest case, okay? You create your resource. Let's start with CINCH resources, okay? The resources that you are creating for this project, they are completely new. The copyright is shared within the partnership, and you agreed to release them openly. So there are no issues to be dealt with according to the content inside those resources, because they are completely done by you, okay? And let's go through this process as it is now. So, do you already know which license you need at first? Okay, if you don't know which license you need, you choose no, I need help selecting a license, and the process will lead you till the choice of the license, okay? And now we have the attribution. do you want attribution for your work? We can choose yes or no. Please consider that this choice is law related, okay? Just a couple of very easy examples. In the US, it makes sense to make this choice available because they have the options to choose public domain when they release a new resource, which means that no one is required to attribute the resource in any case, okay? In Italy, just to give you a different example, and remember, I am not a lawyer, I am an instructional designer, but when you deal with licenses, laws are involved, so you have to know at least a bit of them. In our copyright law is called author's right, okay? And moral rights, which means attribution rights, are always there. So you can choose to release your resource with the most open license available, but the attribution will always be required because you are in Italy, you are creating a resource in Italy, and you have to comply with Italian law. So you will need to attribute it. Okay, this can change from area to area, but I would be keen to tell you that, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I would be keen to tell you that at the European level, which is our landscape today, it is better to attribute. In any case, you're not doing any harm to anybody if you just request attribution, you know, because, and I see your hand raised, Gianpeter. I'm going to give you the floor in a moment. Just let me finish the sentence. So it doesn't mean any harm. You are just asking people, if you want the attribution, to explicitly state when they reuse your resource that you are the authors, okay? In this case, the whole partnership of the project, for example. And please, Gianpeter, go ahead and open your microphone.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I maybe I didn't pay enough attention at the beginning, but these licenses you are talking about, is this just some scheme, or is it a formality? Are they anchored in some European law, or exactly how fixed are these, or how formal is this? So is it just a system that you sort of can use to try to label your work with some sort of permission for others to use? I didn't quite understand if this choose through website, if it's really hooked up to the legal framework of EU or something like that. Could you elaborate a little bit on that,
yes,
please?
Thank you for this question, because it is really important to understand the overall framework. So in the case, for example, of all European funded projects, it is almost always now required to release the outputs with an open license. Okay, so this is a requirement. And this is a decision made by the European Commission not very far away in time, because it was an historical change that happened, I think, no more than 4 years ago, maybe also 3. I mean, it's very recent. And there are different laws. So your question widens the scenario of our talk today, and we can talk more in the future if you're interested. So far, I can assure you that whenever you receive fundings from the European Commission, some or all the outputs, according to the specific requests listed in the funding guide, are going to be openly shared, okay, through these licenses. So there are other kind of open licenses allowed, but the Creative Commons deeds are the most used worldwide because they are very simple, very easy to use, and well recognized almost everywhere because of the layers. I don't know if you were with us when we had the previous webinar, but we can go back to this very quickly. The Creative Commons license have 3 layers. One is what you see, okay, that are the images that you see here, the deeds that you see here on the left of the, sorry, right of the screen, of the shared screen, and you see recommended license. You see a couple of images here. One is a circle with a CC in it. Another one is a circle with a simple person in it, okay? According to the license changes that we are going to go through in the process, we will see those deeds change. This is the image that you see in resources released openly. But then you have a legal code behind them, which is required to be linked to this image, okay? And the legal code is available in I don't remember how many languages worldwide, Italian included, all European languages are already included, and there are specific links to local laws also, okay? So the tools are very helpful. That's why most of the people use them. As I said, other open licenses are allowed, but those are the simplest and the most used everywhere. So yes, it is required to wrap up very simply. Yes, there are requirements to use them, and they depend on the context you are working in. Yes, there are national policies that compel universities to use them. For example, in the Netherlands, there is a policy, a national policy. We don't have one in Italy yet. Yet there are strong invitations worldwide because we have a UNESCO year recommendation, which is a very practical document that strongly recommends, not only invites, all member states, which means 193 states around the globe, to implement OER when they are developing educational resources with public funding, okay? So the process is that the world is moving toward open education, okay? And some decision has been made at institutional level, because there are institutions that decide to implement these at the institutional level. So every content is required to be released openly. Other are at national level, other are European level or global level, okay?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. That was very thorough and informative. My question was maybe a little bit more simple. I mean, is the license, is that something I sort of provide myself? It's like if you want to drive a car, you have to obtain a license to drive your car. You go to a government body and they will issue with you with a license. But and I'm not allowed to sort of just write it myself and then drive around in my car. So it's sort of the same question. Do I need to obtain the license from somebody, or am I just using a framework to label my work, and thereby I myself declare that this is freely available under such and such license, and that's it?
Well, thanks again, because your questions are very helpful. You're right in this case again. You have the right to release your resources with the license that you choose, whenever you own the copyright. That was my starting point today, okay? So we are starting now. The example that we started now and that we are going to continue is in the case that you know you own the copyright on the resource, you are not dealing with contents that were created by others, okay, and that you choose to embed into your resource. The simplest case is the simplest case scenario is You decided to create your resource and you are willing to share it openly. It's your choice. You own the copyright. The license is a layer that you put over your copyright. So the copyright law is the basis, okay? And then you are saying, people, wherever you are, I don't want you to contact me to ask for my permission to reuse the resource that I am sharing. Please look at this license. This license is telling you exactly what I want you to do with my resource without asking me anything.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So it's like I write my own driving license in this case and allow other people to use it according to how
Yes.
I have labeled it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then if you want to reuse my resource and I released my resource with a different license, what you will need to do is to compare our driving licenses. Are we allowed to mix them? Are we allowed to do something specific with them?
Yes.
Or do I have to reach out to Paola to ask for her permission before I reuse anything that she created? That's the game.
Yeah,
okay?
but it's no formal approval body which will check the license I have created then. It's up to me to ensure that it's within the legal framework.
Exactly. There is a legal framework, which is what you can rely on when you go to a tribunal and you are suing me because I reused your resource improperly, for example. Okay. Let's make an example moving forward. So let's see together how it works. Because let's say then that we are compelled to have attribution in this case. Okay. So we answer yes to the question, do you want attribution for your work? And you move to the next stage. Do you want to allow others to use your work commercially? Okay, look what happens on the right side of the screen if I say yes or if I choose no. So now it's yes and the license is the same as it was before. CC by, okay, the logo of the license and the attribution, that's it. And if Francesca chooses no, you see that the license changes. It's very easy. It's very simple. It's really guiding. So you see now that you have the non-commercial because we said we don't want people to use our work commercially. So let's go back to our driving licenses, me and yours, John Peter. Let's say that I take your resource now and I use it in my class and I am paid for it, okay? And I earn a huge amount of money. So if you didn't choose no, okay, I was allowed by you to reuse your resource, quoting you for sure, because you said bye. So I am compelled to quote you and say this resource is a derivative work that started from John Petter's document, okay? In case you don't want me to do that and you discover that I reused your resource, attributing it, but I made a huge amount of money, you can reach out to me and sue me, okay? Because you decided which were the permission that you wanted to give me. Let's say another step, which is the usual thing that we should all do with resources that are not openly licensed. Let's say that I want to reuse it for money. I can write you because I have your attribution in your email, right? In your resource. I try to find you and I ask you, hi, John Peter, I am willing to create a course and I have this chance to make money on it. This is my only money this year because I live in a very poor country and it's difficult to me to find work. Or also I live in Italy, but I have no job, okay? And this is my chance to make money. Can you allow me to reuse your resource for this specific course? And it's up to you to say, okay, in this case, you write me an email, I am allowed by you, and that's it. Which is exactly what should happen with any reused resource that is under a copyright. You can always reach out to the authors. Let's not stop ourselves because people don't know always how to release resources openly. So if you find something very interesting and you find it useful for your students, you can always reach out to the authors and ask for permission to reuse them. So let's say that we don't want them to be used commercially. Let's go on with this and go to the next step and see how complex can license be. So now we have another question that is guiding us in order to help us choose the right license for our resource. Do we want to allow others to remix, adapt, or build upon the work that we are willing to share? Do we want others to reuse it and adapt it to their learners? Well, hopefully, yes. Let's see what happens if we say yes. The license doesn't change because the only constraint that we put into it is that we don't want people to make money out of our resource. And this is still an open license. What happens if we say no? Okay, now the license on the right changed. Can you see that now we have another bullet with an equal sign in it, okay? This means that this resource is shared with a no derivative did. What does this mean? That we are not allowing others, look, go back to the question, we are not allowing others to remix this educational resource that we are sharing, adapt it, or build upon it. Is this still an open resource? No, it is not. Unfortunately, when a resource is shared with no derivative, it's no more an open educational resource. And why? It's very simple. I mean, you are all teaching somewhere, somehow, right? If you have your students in front of you, the first thing that you do almost on a daily basis is to adapt your teaching style, your teaching materials, even if you created them yourselves, to the people that you have in front of you, right? In order to meet their needs, in order to support them, being able to reach their intended learning outcome properly, right? So you are used probably to adapt your own resources, remix them. You find a new paper, which is very interesting. There is a new discovery in the radiochemistry context that you want to embed in the next course. Well, you are going to update your resource. You're not starting from scratch, right? This is the same when you start from other people's resources. If they release their resources, allowing you to change them, to adapt them, well, you will be able to reuse them properly. Otherwise, they're not open. What can you do with a resource that is released with CC BY, NC, and D, which is the license that we have on the right now? Well, what you can do here is just suggest people where to find it and download your own copy. With your own copy locally, you can do whatever you want, okay, on your computer, but you are not allowed to share it, okay? What if you want to adapt it? Again, as I said before, it might be there is a reason why a person decided to release a resource with a CC BY, NC, and D license. You can always try to reach out and ask for a specific permission. Let me give you an example here. As you can imagine, I am an enthusiast of open education, so I would not even consider this option, okay, because this is not open. But there are cases in which content experts are dealing with sensitive content. And it happened to us, for example, with a MOOC about diversity. Okay, if you take a video of this MOOC and you add not in front of a word in the transcript, or you add not in the audio in front of a word in a diversity context, well, you completely change the meaning of the video, okay, of the message. And it is quite sensitive to change the meaning of a video or a message if you're dealing with sensitive content. So I understand the fear of this kind of changes. My argument in this case is, what if people download the video anyway? What if people change it anyway? because internet is full of tools, and this is what happens with the plagiarism on a daily basis, you know. So I think that it's good to have this kind of choice on the table, because there will always be room. It's like having more freedom, okay? You can choose. Better for you to choose, and to choose consciously, which is the license that you are convinced with. On the other side, you have to be aware that digital resources will always be open to changes and to reuse that you might not even discover, but that might be out there. The thing with licensing is that on one side, you are not going to be required to give permission to every single user that is willing to reuse your resource. You will be known through every reuse of it, because you will be attributed. And you can always, again, give specific permission for other kind of uses, but you will be aware of them, because people will ask you before reusing them. In all the other cases, which means all the cases in which people reuse your resource, not taking the license into account, you will be allowed to sue them by law, okay? So those are legal licenses. There is history starting in 2001 of legal issues related to licensing and sentences that have been issued according to the permissions or the limits that licenses allow people to go with. Francesca, I would ask you to go back to the previous choice a moment, because I want to show people how to the previous one, please. If you go back, yes. Say yes to this one. So now you see that we have a different license, because in the next step we said that we don't want the derivative works, right? So the choice about the derivative is already made. If you click on next, we can go back to the next one. Yeah, you see, we still have no, we don't want others to remix, adapt, or build upon the work. But in this case, which I don't know how useful it is, we are saying that we don't care about the non-commercial reuse. Of course, if you are not allowing someone to reuse something or remix it, somehow, how can they reuse it commercially, okay? But anyway, this shows you how the tool works. Okay, so you can go back and try changes to the previous choices and see how the license changes on your right side of the corner. And you also have a very short explanation, which I think is very useful for the deeds that appear. Okay. Okay, in this case, Francesca clicked on see the license deed. In this case, when you click on see the license deed, okay, and this is the link, this is the best explanation possible that you can have if you scroll down to see what is allowed to other people, that, I mean, what people can do when they have in front of them a CC BY license. So it's also what you can do when you find this kind of deed in front of you on another people resource. So back to our license choice, we can go to the next step. You have to choose yes before you move ahead. Okay. And we are, let's go ahead with the CC BY. Next. Okay, now this guiding process asks you again to check. Confirm that the CC licensing is appropriate. Look at this option. I own or have authority to license the work, which means that I am the owner of the copyright, or someone gave me specifically in a written way the permission to attribute a license to the work. Okay, I have the authority, and because you have to check all of them, I have read and understand the term of the license. Okay, and I understand that CC licensing is not revocable. What does it mean is not revocable? Imagine that I share the recording of this webinar. Let's say that this is my webinar, my personal one. So I own the copyright of this webinar today. I ask you for permission for your privacy because your faces are here. And this is my legal requirements, but the content is mine, let's say, okay? So I decide to add a license to the recording of this video. Can I change this license tomorrow? Can I change it 1 year after tomorrow, after I change it for the first time? Somehow I can, somehow I can't. This is a little bit blurred, but let me explain. Is a CC license revocable? No. But if I go with CC BY and I want to change it to CC BY and CND, well, for sure, people who downloaded my webinar when it was CC BY, they own the permission because I gave it to them to do whatever they want with that webinar. The only requirement was please provide attribution, okay? And if people download it after I changed the license, it might be that the download that happened after I changed the license have to deal with a different license, but everyone who shared my resource before were legally allowed to reuse it and adapt it, and also to make money on it, right? On the other side, if I am not aware or not sure about licensing openly something, and I want to keep the license a little bit more closed somehow, let's say that I want to go with the CC BY and CSA, and we skipped this part of the process here, but let's go back to it. So it means that I want my work to be reused with attribution, not for commercial scope. And if one of you reuses it, let's say Elena, you start from this webinar, you add a small bit of content yourself and you share it again. If I add SA to the license, this means that my original work was required to be shared with the same license, okay? Because SA is share alike, okay? This means, and these sharing requirements, the option, okay? So if I add SA, and this now you are seeing SA, okay? Elena should share the derivative work with the same license, which means CC BY and CSA, if this was what I chose, okay? Can I make my work more open tomorrow because I decided to make my license more open? Yes, for sure I can, because Elena downloaded it with a more restrictive license, okay? But I do no harm if I enlarge my license. So this is usually what happens in the history of OER so far, which is still very young because, as I said, it's just 20 years, okay? People often decide to enlarge the permissions, mostly if they are dealing with resources created through public funding, because they are willing to share them as openly as possible to allow people not to reinvent any wheel, but to build quality on what was already done. Do you have any question? Is there anything that is specific to your resources in this project that you want to ask about, or anything that is not clear, or because otherwise I can go ahead and we can see how to attribute properly our work.
Okay, I come here because of the problem of the microphones. Okay, now I open on my screen some resources produced in the field of the three CINCH projects. They are very different. If you agree, we can ask Paola what does she think about releasing with the Creative Commons license these materials, not because we must release them because they are old, if we can say we are not compelled to do it. But if we want to release some of them to increase the knowledge and the materials about nuclear radiochemistry in the world on some other repository. And when I say to share on a repository, I don't mean that we have to copy, but only to link. Okay, we will say later. I open these links.
Yeah, just to close this part, the part that you see now, Francesca, please, just a moment. No, because it was the, yeah, you have the attribution details here, okay? This is a guiding scheme that is very helpful to let people look into your work and to attribute it properly to you when the moment comes. Okay, so the basic information that a good OER need to have together with it is as it is called, the TASL structure of the attribution statement. T is for title. How is your work named? Okay. In this case, it can be the title of this webinar could be OERs with Paola. Let's keep it simple, okay? Then we have to say who is the creator of the work. A CINCH team, okay? In this case, the creator of the work is, look at this, who will receive attribution. In this case is you as a project team, right? Because this is your content somehow. And then we can have the link to the work. So when the recording is done, you might want to upload it to YouTube, for example, as simple as possible. And you will add here the link to the work that you are willing to share. Okay? And if you want, you can add a link to the creator profile. In this case, I would recommend that. This is a project result, okay? If you add here the link to the project website, that would be useful for you to disseminate about the project itself. And you can, but you are not compelled to, add the year of creation. Why this is helpful? Because whenever we look into resources, we are interested in see if they are old, young, recently updated or not, right? So having the year in the attribution statement helps reusers. And this means that it's done. If you scroll down this page, you see that this is a very, very useful part of the page. Confused, need help? Please, when you have time, have a look at those questions, because the kind of help that you receive is the same guiding help, very simple, very clear, that we benefited from through this page and through this chooser beta, okay? So this is a very well done resource. I think that this is very helpful also for people who are not familiar with licensing at all, and who are not legal, who don't have legal skills, but are willing to be quickly aware of what is on the table. So now we can maybe have a look at the specific resources.
Yes. Okay. An introduction. I choose this page because Jon Petter is with us today. So he is the author, and he knows everything about this NoQuick. But the question is, Paola, if we decide to release all these or only some of these resources with a license, which are the steps and before, which are the questions we have to answer? Because
Perfect.
if I open, for example, a very easy resource.
Okay, I will talk. Yeah, but now Francesca will open one of the resources that are out there, and let's see what I would ask you, Jan Peter. Okay, today is between the two of us. We it's a yeah. So what would I ask you? So did you author this resource yourself? Let's start with this.
Yeah, as you see, it's not. It's written by Jukka Leto in 2016. It's on the first line.
Okay, perfect. So is Jukka a member of this project team?
Not anymore, no.
Okay, so if we want to release this resource openly and Jukka is not in the project team, I can't ask him today directly, but the first question would be, Jukka, are you happy with adding an open license to this resource? Because this textbook belongs to a project that is willing to share openly the resources. Yeah. What does it mean to share them openly? I mean, it's already on the website. Why should Jukka decide to add a license? How can we convince him? Or is it a him or her?
It's him.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't know the name and I prefer.
Was part of the CINCH project 2 projects back.
Okay, so the first question is, Jukka already decided to share it openly. I mean, if I have the link, I can look into the resource. What should I need more? First of all, one thing is to have the resource accessible through the website. Another thing to have this resource openly shared. The difference is that open is more than free. As we said in the previous webinar, open is free plus permission. The permission that we just discussed, okay? If this is on the website and I want to reuse it, Paola, here in Politecnico, I know that I am ignorant in radiochemistry, but just let's say that for today I am an expert. I find this resource very useful. I want to reuse it because why should I recreate it? It's perfect as it is. I just want to add a couple of contents that are specific for my group of students, okay? I would like to reach out to Jukka and ask, can I download your resource, adapt it to my intended learning outcomes and my target students, and then why not share it again so that you first can reuse it with my additional contents with your students without spending any moment recreating them. And I can also tell you, I found out a typo here and there. We corrected them, me and my students. Please reuse this resource that we somehow enhanced, okay? So without the licenses, I can't do that. If Jukka puts a license on this resource, then I won't have to contact Jukka to ask for permission. I will know from the image of the license in this page that I can reuse this textbook, that I might not be allowed to use it for commercial purposes, and that I am not compelled to use the same kind of license when I share my resource, my derivative resource again, okay? This is everything that Jukka might be willing to tell me through the deed of the license. And if I am not sure about what I am allowed to do, I click on the license and the link takes me to the legal explanation on the Creative Commons website, okay? In my own language, because if the translation is available, I will be taken directly to the language of my browser. Okay, so this is what happens in this case. First level. Second level is, did Jukka use any other content in this resource? I mean, did he use content that you created? Jan Peter, for example. If yes, and I don't know, but if yes, before choosing a license, you should be contacted too, because a part of this content is yours, you know? which is exactly what anyone should do with any resource copyright protected, right? I mean, it's not different from that. When the copyright changes, the question should be asked again. In general, to reuse, but specifically for the licenses too. Another question might be, oh, we have another content now. We have a lab exercise with two authors. Okay, wonderful. So one is in the room, and I can ask, Jon, Peter, are you happy if I reuse this lab exercise? And you should answer. I have to ask Thorn first. Because I can give you half of the permission.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind this, the material, was that it should be openly available and be adaptable. Of course, I mean, we always have been sort of a little bit apprehensive because the material we provided here probably has been assembled through 50, 60 years of teaching radiochemistry and handed down from one teacher to the next teacher. So the origin of the material is impossible to trace. We are actually now rewriting and sort of tidying up, and this is perfect. This seminar is perfect for this, because now we probably can put the appropriate license on the different pages in a much better way, and with the chooser you just explained, it makes it simpler for us. But our approach, I think, will have to be that we go through, and when it's text which is sort of general and sort of could be written by anybody, and it's taken from compendia assembled at one university, we would probably attribute it to that university and the most recent teacher. But when it comes to graphical work, illustrations, drawings, pictures, then we will need to either redo them, so we sort of can start from scratch. Yeah, yeah, that picture, figure 3 there is a very typical example. I have no clue where it has been stolen from, but I'm absolutely certain it has been stolen from somewhere. So what we probably will need to do is to simply throw out that picture and make a new illustration, so we can have a proper copyright on it.
Wonderful example, and that's why Francesca and I discussed about this, because this is typical. I mean, all you said is typical. The digital contents were not available 50 years ago, nor they were 30 years ago in most of the cases. Okay, so this is a complete new context, which is enabling us to do many things, and also it's changing together with the history of educational contents. Okay, so let's not worry too much. I mean, first of all, in the case that I have in front of me here, this is a very specific content. It's okay that maybe it's difficult to go back to the origin of it, and in particular for images, because it might have been taken with a picture and digitalized afterward from a paper book. Okay, this is very likely. First option, look into image repositories to find a new example that is shared openly, and then simply attribute properly. Okay, first option. If the content is very specific, and radiochemistry is quite specific, so it's very unlikely, honestly, that someone else already shared the images that you are looking for, the specific images that you are looking for openly. In that case, a good investment moving forward is to, yes, recreate the image so that you own the copyright, but then please share it openly so that the next you will never need to recreate it or to be legally wrongful because they reused something without asking for permission, okay? Also, another thing that is happening very often, I hope this is not the case, but you know, when you are dealing with content that come from the paper version of the world of educational contents, some of the authors are not there anymore, but the copyright is still there, and it lasts 70 years after the death of the owner in the hands of the heirs, okay? How can you contact them to ask for the permission? Because of course this would be the easiest way. You write an email, please, can I reuse this in an educational content? Yes, go ahead. That's it. It's not so easy. So another thing that you can do is to add a disclaimer at the bottom of the resource saying this resource made use of previous educational materials which at the present time we are not able to trace back in all their part. In case you find something that is not properly reused or attributed, please tell us and we will take care of this immediately. Okay? In that case, I mean, if someone reuses your work and they don't quote you properly, and you find it reused in another educational resource, and you find this disclaimer, you feel somehow invited to write, right? You can write an email and it doesn't bother you too much. You can say, okay, I want to be attributed like this, and this. And please maybe consider that I now have this better version of the same content. You might want to use that. You know, it's a virtuous process that was not possible 20 years ago. It is now. And it's, again, even if we have the license, the process is changing. Just imagine that the chooser beta that I shared with you, it is still a beta version, but it was not available last year. Things are changing because most of the people are using resources, openly shared resources more often. That's why we can improve the process. That's why all the questions, all the issues, all the problems that you face are useful to make it easier in the future. So don't feel, I mean, I know it's sometimes what happens is that we are not of us. I think that no one here in the room has a legal background, right? And whenever you have to deal with laws, you feel uncomfortable. Am I allowed to do that? Am I not allowed? So please consider that everyone willing to work with educational resources and willing to use them properly, and I didn't say openly shared, educational resources in general. The aim is to educate people. Usually this doesn't come with let's say, an approach that is toward ownership. It's much more often that people are willing to share knowledge, okay? And we are lucky enough that because we can count on this. Of course, it comes with tricks, and we saw some of them, and please count on me if you have any specific practical issue moving on with your project and you have questions about a specific resource, reach out. I will be available and happy to help. But it's a process that is ongoing and is an approach, is a cultural approach most of all, as you can easily see, okay? Is a cultural approach that is changing the attitude to really build on each other and avoid stopping ourselves in front of a digital world of contents that is easily available. And sometimes it's just because we are ignorant yet, you know, not properly licensed, but we are all willing to share because Contents are out there. People actually can already do whatever they want with them. It's just that we are not used to do it properly sometimes. Okay, so it's something that we can contribute to working with it. Do we have other examples, Francesca? Or maybe do you have a specific questions about something that is content related, or also it comes from tricky experiences that you had within this project or in other cases also? Why not?
Well, I think with the NUCWIC website, the whole idea with that website, the basic idea when we created it was that it should be shared, and it was originally a wiki, so we intended people to work together to help each other to create better content, and in that respect, the idea was that whatever we put there should be allowed to be used by anybody, and it could be changed. But we then also asked that please put the better content back on the wiki, so others will immediately benefit from anything from correcting typos to an additional compendium of whatever has been written. It was a little bit disappointing because I think there was a lot of people who was happy to download.
Yes.
No one was contributing. So it was only a few of us which then put material on the site. It sort of ended up as it is now, where it was sort of a good starting point for improvement in many cases, and then no one took it further, and people still used it, but they didn't help us to make it better. So when the commercial web, the wiki website was shut down, we had to move to another site. We decided to just go to a web ordinary web service, which was not the wiki type of site, because we didn't really see that we was able to persuade teachers to work together. That to me was a little bit disappointing, but I guess I was hoping for too much at the outset. But it still should be the basic principle, whatever we put on the NUCWIC website, is that it should be openly available. You should be allowed to copy it and use it and adapt it for your own teaching. But of course, we would like to be attributed as the creators of the original content. And I think using the chooser, which you just shown us, and choosing the right answers there would help us to label the pages much more appropriately, because as you saw, we had written that it's free and open, but it was not so systematic and clear as what you have shown us. So I think that is something I would like to add to the website to make it more in line with current thinking and requirements. When it comes to the graphical content, I feel that many of the illustrations are so easy to make, so it's probably quicker to make a new one, which will be more a higher quality and obviously not copied from some old book, and it's a little bit skewed and whatnot. And then instead of trying to obtain the proper original place where it was copied from, when it's of course more complex diagrams, so pictures or things like this, then it's another matter. But I think we will go the road where we try to recreate the illustrations instead of hunting down the license when they are simple.
Well, let me comment on this, please, because first of all, if you choose a wiki with these aims in mind, well, you were very ahead of times, you know. So maybe it was the audience was not ready, not you. Your choice was great, and now you might want to consider Wikipedia for this specific content, because if pages are not there yet, the whole Wikipedia system allows you and to do what you are talking about, and the community now is used to edit Wikipedia pages with the proper training and the proper approach. And you might want to consider also involving your students in doing that. Taking a page, studying the content, consider how to create a Wikipedia page on that content. What should I consider? Should I recreate an image? Which kind of, and about the images, totally on board with your guiding principles. If it is quicker, let's do it ourselves and then release it with an open license. I would suggest to consider specific schemes or images that might need you to attribute anyway the authors, because if you are reproducing a diagram which has specific insights in it, well, better to say explicitly, this is a recreation of Elena Macerata's schemes, which is allowed, you can do that, but at least you are also telling people who did the thinking behind it, okay? Finally, a very practical suggestion would be, you don't have to consider licensing each page of your wiki website, or your website now coming from the wiki. You can consider to license the whole website with this statement, except where otherwise noted. This website, the content of this website is released with a CC BY license, okay? Which means that just in the specific pages where you need a different license, you put a specific license just in those pages. It's quicker and easier, okay? And you might want to choose, I don't know, CC BY or CC BY NC, but then it might be that you have a CC BY and CSA, because one of the authors wants that license for that page only, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very useful suggestions, and also what you said about Wikipedia. We felt that Wikipedia was it was too much highly specific material to sort of fit on Wikipedia. I mean, we have Yuka's textbook, which is 200 pages textbook on radiochemistry and detection. Putting that on Wikipedia might, I'm not sure if it would be sort of perceived as the right thing to put on Wikipedia. I don't know.
You know, Wikipedia doesn't have boundaries.
Yeah.
You don't have to print it all. Yeah. That's why we are lucky. Yeah. And we have professors here in Politecnico who, starting 4 years ago, are on, creating pages on very, very specific in-depth content related to chemistry with PhD students as part of the course, okay? With the support of Wikimedia, okay? And the content is highly specific. And when we have international students, the action is, let's not create just the English version, let's just create immediately also their native language version. And it's very specific, but if there is anyone else in India or in Pakistan who is willing to look into this specific chemistry content, I mean, why not? It's already there.
It's a very good idea. I actually, many years ago, I had courses where we used the Wikipedia. Then it was the University of Oslo's own Wikipedia system. And we, instead of writing lab reports, which is read by your supervisor and then totally forgotten and will never resurface again, they wrote the laboratory reports explaining the equipment and principles and theory behind it on the Wikipedia, and then it was available for the students for the next year, and then next year they could improve on it and expand on it. So that actually worked out quite nice, but then they shut down the Wikipedia thing, so it sort of got lost. But of course, if you can do something like that on not the Wikipedia, the wiki, they shut down the wiki thing. But yeah, I would seriously consider if we should translate this or transfer it to Wikipedia. That might actually be a good idea.
And you can also count on an infrastructure that is already working, checked by millions of people. You have technical support, and people will always be allowed to properly suggest how to update it, which doesn't mean that they can update it. You know, you can always moderate the content, but it's thought to be open, is designed to be open to changes and to be improved by anyone who is expert enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea. I would have to discuss it with the others, of course. So I see Moimir and Jan is online. I don't know if they are just on there participating for real or not. But yeah. Hello, Moimir.
Yeah, hello.
We also need to discuss it with Nick, which is doing a major effort on upgrading and updating the Nupwik. But yeah, it's sort of a tempting idea to transfer it to Wikipedia. I like that.
Please, with students, that they know which is the structure behind it, and they learn from the process also.
Yeah.
If I may, I will really appreciate to make it back to be wiki, because yeah, it's much more flexible, and of course this is just mainly for Elena and Jon Peter. We have to create some manuals for VR laboratories and this kind of stuff. And wiki structure is yeah, probably the best option how to do that. So this will help us probably even more doing this. And another comment, Nick was in Prague. I discussed with him for 20 minutes because he had to leave anyway. And he will attend Radchem conference as well. So we can just make short discussions in these topical groups around and make it discuss in details. Yeah.
Yeah, sound good. I certainly will keep this in mind, and we will maybe we should take it as on agenda for the next project meeting. But I think it's a good idea. Yeah, so yeah, I learned a lot. You gave me a lot of good ideas, so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for asking questions, because through questions it's always easier to go to the point. And Francesca knows me, I love to be practical. So the theory is good, but then people have needs. So it's better to start.
Yeah, no, it was
yeah.
Very, very useful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I am
yes.
Please.
Also from my side, thank you very much for showing me this, because I was all the time somehow saying, okay, there are some author laws and this kind of stuff, and this is a very dangerous area. Anyway, so this somehow simplified the stuff, but not as much, because I don't want to open it now because I have to think about this. But of course, in this European project, there are some rules from the project, coming down from EC, but there are also some rules from the institutions, because we are not creating as the persons, but as employees from the
Yes.
university, which we have to take into account. And there are some stuff which I have to at least ask if I can just do some license somewhere or not, or put it somewhere or not, because I do not know even if I'm allowed or not. So this is also a direction where to ask and what to ask. And with this tool, it's nice background or stuff which I can take, go to the institution
Yes.
or university lawyers and say, okay, I need this. So what are you doing for this? So yeah, thanks you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really, Paola. As I supposed, I was sure, but thank you very much, because you are very clear and so passionate of this theme that you give us the hint to go on. And I think that we have prepared, I suppose, the material for 7
yes.
hours webinar, but we have a lot of links to, and we can send to you with a brief explanation. For example, the Merlot repository, I suppose it can
Yes,
be
and
useful.
also your commons. I mean, there are
Yeah.
a couple of repositories where you might want to look into to see other kind of resources to be inspired by what people share, but also to see what is missing, because you are dealing again with a specific content that is untraced. So better for the global community to have your contents available wherever they are. If you add them to a wiki, then there are strategies to make them findable through meta search engines, so that many more people can reach out to them.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we close now. Thank you.